So we got Stephen Olmon on the podcast here today. And the only reason that this might be a little bit of a strange episode is because we've done this episode before. And out of 60 plus podcasts, we have never lost a recording or had like crazy audio issues to the point where we couldn't publish until Stephen's episode came around. And for some reason, the entire audio track went missing. So we're recording on Zoom today instead of Riverside. What's up, Stephen?
What's up? Yeah, it was that bad. That's how bad it was. We had to redo it.
We have a full audio clip that's just Connor and I talking to a wall, essentially.
Yeah.
It is only our half of the audio.
But
wild.
But I do think so. Stephen was actually the first person of the mentor series that we brought on. And we were so focused on like, got to be under 10 minutes that I felt like I left the episode. I was like, that was good, but it was a little rushed. So I'm excited to actually have you on and we can flesh things out a little bit more this episode.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. Let's do it again.
Let's do it. So Stephen runs several ventures. He's got, how many companies do you have under several ventures now at this point?
11.
So one of the things that I get most excited about, and I feel like I battle back and forth with this idea every single day, is like, should I go and start 20 different companies over the next 10 years? Because I know that like from my interests and like just my boredom, and I get bored on one thing very quickly, like that's the most fun thing for me. Now you talk to other people who are like running these like $1 billion companies and they're like, no, actually like the best thing that you can do is go all in on one thing and make like that one thing your core focus. I'd love to kind of know your thought process around starting several and like just generally the idea behind starting several businesses at once. Like where's your head at with that whole concept?
Yeah. So the quick history is I grew up with a dad that did three things. So, nonprofit, for-profit, and he was actually a pastor. And so I thought that was normal. I thought every dad had like multiple jobs. And I talked to my friend's dad that was a surgeon. I was like, what else do you do? He's like, what do you mean what else do you do?
What else?
I fix people's bodies. That's enough. So I just grew up with that concept and I thought it was really cool. And I was talking about systems and efficiency and delegation when I was like 8. So
the coolest you rolled around.
Well, I don't know about that, but I definitely learned a lot from my dad. And so I also wanted to invest in other people. It wasn't, when I think about business, it's not all about self-gain. And so how can I help other people do that? I decided to pursue building multiple companies with other people as a means of helping people take that leap. Like my addiction is helping people leave corporate to start a company and help them believe in themselves. So that's a key thing too, as in all those, 11 businesses, I'm not highly operational in all 11 businesses, just to clarify. So that's also part of it. I don't think you should start 20 businesses that you're highly operational, and that's not really possible.
What are some of the specific pros and cons there, right? Because again, I think the double-edged sword of being an entrepreneur is we all have shiny object syndrome. We all want to start a million things. Frequently the advice is, hey, if you want to be really, really successful, go all in on one. Yeah. You've obviously bridged that gap really well of being really successful in multiple, but I'm assuming you must have seen some trade-offs either in terms of, maybe you're not at the scale you want to be, but you have, better home life, or you're just happier. What does that specifically look like in terms of, some of the trade-offs you've taken, but I'm assuming that are probably worth it?
Yeah, two things coming to mind. One is I've just become satisfied with going slower. I know that if I only focus on one business and I worked 90 hours a week, that business could be absolutely crushing it. But I've become okay with going slower. And then also, what are you optimizing for? If you want to optimize for wealth creation, focus on one business, go unicorn route, go public, like absolutely. I optimize more so for balance between family and business and friendship and hobbies and that sort of thing. And so I've kind of gravitated this route where I don't ever want to take a business public. I haven't ever raised money. I haven't needed to. And so that's just a game I'm playing.
That's awesome. I know that you talk with a lot of different people, and this is kind of what you mentioned, like your love language is almost like convincing people to like leave their corporate jobs so they're not happy with. And I think anyone listening to this right now, if you're happy with your job, like do your job, right? Like that's not the type of audience that we're talking with. It's the people who think that they can be doing more, but don't necessarily have the confidence or the know-how to go out on their own and start their own thing. What do those conversations look like? Because I'm sure there's people listening to this right now who are like, I'm not happy with my thing. I want to go do something else. Like, how do you kind of help them think about it all?
Yeah. So I actually start typically with personal finance. So my wife and I came out of 6 figures of debt when we got married. And so because of that, that's where I start and say, what does your personal financial life look like? What are you capable of doing? Can you take 6 or 12 months without any notable income? What's their risk profile? Because that will show them kind of what's possible. And because of the gig economy and places like Upwork and all sorts of stuff, different top towel, whatever it is, you can also go make 2, 3, 4, 5, 6K a month easily if you have certain skill sets while building a business. And so I think on average, I try to help people understand that it's not as risky as they think it is. I think there's this belief, we talk health insurance and families, and they freak out like, and they freeze and they never do it. So I really am into helping people understand that it's not as risky as they might perceive it to be, and then start to make a plan from a personal financial perspective, because a business is only ever as healthy financially as the owner is.
And the tough part here, though, is actually finding the good operators, in my opinion, right? Because if I have probably 15 ideas every day, and if I feel like if I had reasonable people to plug into them, that's what I would be doing. But finding the people in the people aspect of running a business, everyone complains about as probably one of the most difficult things you can do, is finding really good people and training them and getting them up to speed. But you've mastered this somehow. And like, how do you go about making sure that it's the right person, you find someone out of the blue, and that they can effectively run a business when they haven't ever done that before?
Yep. Great question. That is really the question for me. And I've taken my time with people, spent time with them, gotten to know them. And there's no silver bullet, but I would say I try to think about, okay, for this business that I might be a part of with them, what is the core service? And am I convinced that they are able to execute the service? That's where I want to start, right? Can they self-operate from a service and delivery perspective for that first 5 to 10 clients or whatever? That's like a service-oriented business, I'm saying. So I'm trying to make sure they have the right skill set. And then from there, you can kind of build around them and fill the gaps that they don't have, because none of us are good at everything. The other thing I'd say is that, I allocate about 10% of my week to meet new people, and that's just as a discipline. So I've been doing that, but we all love scalability, and I may or may not currently be working on building more of like a community related to people that want to leave corporate. So that is something that would fill top of funnel for more kind of on a regular basis.
That's actually really smart. So you're basically creating all the content around like, how can you leave corporate and start your own thing? By the way, you want to start your own thing? Here's this cool idea I have that you should actually just go and plug into. That makes a ton of sense. I want to dive into the network building stuff in a little bit. The thing I want to kind of go and level set with some people who are listening to this though first is, out of the 11 businesses you own, could you give a glimpse into like what types of businesses they are? Because I think people hear 11 businesses and they're like, what can you possibly be doing?
Yep. So 4 of the businesses are kind of agency-esque, some sort of model that's, marketing agency, PPC, RevOps. So there's that category, kind of like micro SaaS category, a couple of those. 2 physical businesses. So I actually own part of a dumpster rental business and also a security dealer. And then also recently have kind of started to spin up a lending business as well. So
Right, we've talked about
kind
that
of gives
before.
a glimpse. Yeah.
And so what's interesting about these businesses is that, maybe with the exception more of the SaaS businesses, but like they're a lot more SMB focused, where you're kind of going for like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, like more of a cash flow approach, where every business is designed not necessarily to go and be this $10 million exit, but to go and provide several $100,000 a year in cash flow when they're operating efficiently. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
And so if the goal for several, and this is like what I love about, like, honestly, your Twitter bio basically says like trying to build 50 companies by 2050, which I think is just, regardless of whether you do it, cool ass goal. And it's just like a cool tagline to like kind of resonate like who you are as a person. Is the goal for all of those 50 companies to just be like these cash flowing machines that none of them are necessarily trying to be moonshots, but they're all trying to beat, the 70-year-old operators in those markets that you're competing against?
Yes, that is really the plan. And then I just, with all that discretionary income, I'm doing other things outside of those operating companies and investing in new operating companies for sure. But it really is all focused on that. If one of them becomes more of a moonshot and I realize has a lot of potential, I may decide to double down, triple down, reinvest and grow that. And I'm open to selling. But my real strategy is just to increase cash flow and have high margin businesses.
How are you structuring your arrangements with different operators in terms of aligning incentives? It sounds like I think you put up a lot of the general idea and capital for it. So then how do you, yeah, I guess convince them to leave a high paying job with enough upside, but then also balancing the fact that you need to see a return and your end goal is, a good amount of cash flow every month?
Yeah, so there's different setups, right? And depends, again, kind of going back to their personal financial circumstance. But what feels really comfortable to me is I'm putting in, let's say 25K into kind of an early pot of a marketing budget, kind of spin up some kind of core pillars of the business. I have a playbook on legal, financial oversight, banking, all that sort of stuff. Spin that up real fast. It's just like literally like a 20-point checklist now. And I have a bunch of vendors that are already vetted that I use on other businesses all the time. So all of that's just set. And in certain circumstances, like the security dealer, as an example, that person was earning a lot of money, doing very well for themselves, wanted to take a step out. We believed in him. So he has what I would call a modest salary. Whereas in other circumstances, it's really eat what you kill. And we're really just partners, cap table, distributions, and they might be doing something else on the side, or maybe they even own another business. So it can be varied, but I am never more than 50%. And I actually enjoy not being 50% because I want them to feel the weight of ownership. And so I feel very comfortable in that 25 to 40%, on a cap table like that. And I'm providing ongoing content, CFO services, kind of legal. So those sorts of things are always kind of like back office, essentially economies of scale through several that's free to those operators.
That's awesome. One side note, you should definitely sell a digital version of that checklist. I think we talked about this a while ago, but I would benefit from that, honestly. I think everyone would benefit from that. So whether or not you decide to sell it or use it as a lead magnet or whatever you want to do in the future, I think that would be really valuable for a lot of first-time entrepreneurs.
And that actually be a great lead magnet for your community. I'm assuming you've probably already thought of it, but hey, download. Ever thought about starting your own company? Download my 100%. Checklist.
Yeah, you guys are spilling the secrets a couple months too early, so it's good. I appreciate it.
So you basically, all right, let's just assume you work 40 to 50 hours a week. You mentioned that you intentionally set aside about 10% of your time just to solely focus on your network, which I think is really smart, because I think a lot of people want this awesome network, but they don't do anything about it, right? They're not actively creating content. They're not actively reaching out to people. Can you give a glimpse into okay, out of those 4 or 5 hours, is that including the meeting time? Is this you finding people on Twitter to DM? Is this you literally building out a spreadsheet of people that are already in your network to shoot another message to reconnect with? I would love to know tactically how that works.
Right. I would say when I come across someone that a lot of it has to do with I had this conversation yesterday. 85+% of it is me trying to learn something. I want to connect with someone. I connected with someone yesterday in the land industry. It's very experienced, over a decade in land. I got to ask some very specific questions, but he also had some technology questions I got to help him with. It was really fun, and have a new friend named Chris. So, that's what I come across.
So, yeah, and sorry to interrupt. Yeah. I think I just met him, whatever, the other month.
Yeah, I think you actually came up. So, that's an example where I came across him, shot him a message. Hey, I would love to ask you a few questions. Love to get to know you. And so those 4 hours or so, 4 or 5 hours, 90% of that is just actually speaking with people.
And what is the rest of your time spent on? So you're saying you provide CFO services, legal, accounting. Are those outsourced? Do you have a team in place? So I'm assuming you're not actually doing most of those. What does that team look like? And at what point did you decide, hey, I'm either outsourcing this or I'm hiring full time? And how did you fill those roles?
Yep. So I, basically my CPA touches all those businesses. My fractional CFO touches all those businesses. My attorneys touching all those contracts. Those are all vendors over the course of time I built a lot of trust with. And so then I am essentially saying, I know that their work is good. I can trust them, and I have the financial ability to, pay for those things because I want the control. Frankly, I want the control to know that those jobs are going to be done well, like with excellence and on time. And so I choose to spend money there as a cost center, essentially, for me and several.
So it's more of kind of trusted vendors that you guys go to. You don't really have an in-house team yet that's doing
That's
those
correct.
services. How
Yep.
do you
And
do that
I
kind
think,
of going forward?
yeah, I think I'll get there.
Okay.
Although I will say, I joke to my like bio link that I'm in love with another woman, which is my CPA. So I don't think I can ever bring her in house, and I don't think I can ever not work with her. She's amazing. She's got the best laugh on planet Earth. Um, you know, so she's just incredible. So other than that, I could see bringing those other things in house someday, but I haven't yet.
So is the game plan now for the next, let's call it 30 years, to basically go and buy or start one to two businesses every single year indefinitely?
Yes, I mean, I'm an opportunist. So if there's 4 good or 5 good opportunities that present themselves, let's do it. I'm ready to go for that. And then there might be a 2-year period where I don't start a single one. And that's another thing to clarify is all of these have been started from scratch. And I do intend to buy. I'm inspired by a lot of my friends that are buying and doing roll-ups. That we meet on Twitter and run into them, and I've gotten to hang out with some people in real life as well that are doing that. And I feel like I'm capable of that. I want to do that. And there's lots of money that's interested in, co-investing into those sorts of strategies. And so I foresee buying in the near future.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've also got a really good playbook too, where like you say you essentially won't start a business unless it makes money from day one, which I think is really smart because I think a lot of people kid themselves into thinking that like it's okay to run this high revenue, low profit business for a year or two because year 3 is when we're gonna really reap the reward. I think you're a pretty straight shooter in the sense that like you're like, no, we're making money from day one and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be candid. I mean, I had to start a new LLC recently, and there was some things that were swirling in a very specific industry, and people came to me for help, and I said, "Hey, let's start this." I haven't hired an operator for it yet. I will, and that business just is starting out making 11K a month, and
Damn.
and it's high margin, and
Yeah.
so that's great. That's awesome. And I don't say that to brag. It's just that's the sort of stuff that I want to do where I say, hey, from day 0, no one's hurting,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and we're not worried that we're gonna bleed out. And so that's I'd rather be patient and wait for opportunities like that.
What sort of opportunities are you seeing that other people might be able to act on if they don't really have a business right now, but they want to hustle, they want to make some cash flow? Where would you recommend that they start looking? Are we talking dumpster rentals? Are we HVAC or anything along those lines that you'd recommend they check out?
Yeah, I would definitely not say either of those because of just the capital required, right? And so if
Right.
I want someone to ease their way into something and not, ruin their life, I'd rather them start with something that's near zero cost to them to start and provide some sort of service. And I'd really like them to do something in a specific industry. So, there's a guy at Grant's Journey. I got to meet up with him in person. You can see him on Twitter. He's great. And he is doing video and photo for ecom.
Smart.
And, kind of like almost like a Suna Studios sort of vibe as a one-off. I think he's doing a little bit differently. And that's a great example where he said, I'm going to be specific. I have this specific skill set. I'm going to take it and go apply it to one industry, and I'm going to go ask for business and try. I think that's a great model where he doesn't have a lot of costs. He's being specific. Here's this service for this industry. I'm good at it. Here's a couple testimonials, and see how it goes. So that's where I would direct someone.
Do you have any other specific industries or actual businesses that you think also line up with that model?
Wait, maybe
Not-
actually a better way to phrase this question is
Okay.
we're gonna probably have like 1,000 people listen to this episode roughly and might ebb and flow, but like I know that you right now have like 6 ideas you want to work on that if you found the right operator, you would go and pursue those, right? So like honestly, use this as free marketing if you're interested and want to go and unveil those ideas. Because I think that I would not be
Okay.
surprised at all if there's people that DM you being like, that was an awesome idea. I would love to like take that down with you.
Yep. So there's I can go on 5 or 6 right now. I'll at least do maybe 2 or 3. So in the insurance space, there's a lot of specific large kind of these big niche software companies, and they don't typically offer a lot of service around their product. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to build service companies on top of insurance technology platforms. So that's something I'm
Can you
really
define that
interested in.
a bit more? What do you mean service around? Like what?
Sure. So there's a bunch of tasks, a bunch of to-dos. It's monotonous and tedious to, work policies and, getting things signed and all that. And a lot of it, although there is a technology facilitating it, there's still manual work to be done. And the insurance companies themselves, like an insurance agency or broker doesn't necessarily want to staff up to do these things. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a handful of these insurance companies in different segments of insurance. I think you can layer on a service company, VAs, you can go that route, whatever. You were going to say?
Well, I was gonna say, it's funny you say that because I know some guy, and I won't say his name or really even the company, but basically he was a sales rep, killing it, making like $300,000 to $400,000 a year, whatever like that. Left because he started this one business where all he would go and do is bring people from their current website to HubSpot. And I know this isn't insurance, this is like just migration essentially of like your marketing platform, but he would charge them like tens of thousands of dollars. And he went from making $300,000 to $400,000 a year to like $600,000 to $700,000 a year instantly. And it's something that HubSpot, they would help transfer, but like they're not like going to be that hands-on white glove service. I got to imagine that between insurance, between website transfers, whatever it is, there's got to be so much opportunity out there.
A ton of opportunity. Yeah, and the other thing I'll plug is everyone's talking about content. Connor, you've been pushing on content a lot. I'm really interested in the content repurposing space. There's a lot of different people doing that, and I'm looking really hard right now at a service company in content repurposing that's a little different than some of the other larger players in the market.
That's
I mean,
smart.
we would probably hire you. we just hired a couple people to just repurpose our content. We have 60 episodes in the backlog, and we have video and so much stuff to go through that I think there's definitely a huge demand for that. That's awesome.
Cool.
Awesome, Steven. Well, this was an awesome episode. I think I'm glad that the first episode was like 9 minutes. This will be 23 minutes. So I'm glad that we could actually talk and flesh it out a little bit more. And I apologize again that the first recording got deleted. But if people want to go and check you out, if people want to DM you about this content business or the insurance business, where can they go and find you?
At Stephen Olmon, StephenOlmon. DMs are open, and severalventures.com.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show today, Steven.